She walked into the cafe like nothing had happened. Hair blown out just the way the stylists at the agency used to fawn over, eyes sharp, scanning the room like she owned every inch of it. Tara hadn't changed. Not the way people do when they're sorry. Not the way someone should after what she did. I didn't move. I just watched. My hands were wrapped around my coffee cup like it could anchor me. It was already cold, but I wasn't there for the coffee. I was there to see if she'd recognize me. If she'd pause, tilt her head, even for a second, and remember the face of the woman she gutted 2 years ago. She didn't. She walked right past me and sat down at the table near the window, flipping through her phone with the same careless grace she had when she deleted my presentation file and uploaded her own. I remember that day like it's carved into me. Back then, we shared a cubicle and a boyfriend. Though only one of us knew that at the time. I'd stayed up 3 nights finalizing a pitch for our biggest client. Tara had offered to look it over, said she'd upload it to the company server while I grabbed lunch. By the time I got back, the deck had been submitted, with her name on it. My name was nowhere. The client loved it. The creative director did too. She got the promotion. I got a 2-minute meeting with HR, and a weird restructuring speech that didn't even sound rehearsed. And him, Jack, he didn't even try to hide it. 3 days later, he was holding her hand at the holiday party, wearing the watch I had bought him, laughing at something she whispered in his ear. I left that night without saying goodbye. To anyone. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the silence afterward. No one called. No one checked. Not even Tara. Not a single, "Are you okay?" It was like I had evaporated. I spent the first month after that sleeping on my cousin's couch, staring at the ceiling, asking myself the same 4 words over and over. How did I miss it? Was it the way she always insisted we share everything? The way she'd borrow my lipstick, my clothes, my time? The way she always showed up, perfect timing, when Jack and I were fighting? Or was it me? Too trusting. Too proud to believe someone I loved could be that calculated. Either way, by the time spring came, I wasn't the same person. I didn't make announcements. I didn't post online. I just started building. Quietly. From scratch. And now, 2 years later, here we were. Same city. Same game. But the board had changed. I reached for my folder as her name was called at the front. Interview, 2 p.m., Tara Hendricks. She smiled at the receptionist, confident as ever. Still thinking she was climbing the ladder. She didn't know it led to my office. And this time, I had all the power. I watched her cross the lobby like it still belonged to her. As if the years hadn't passed, as if she was still the golden girl of the agency, sharp heels clicking, shoulders back, charm oozing with every calculated smile. The receptionist offered her a water bottle. She took it, casually, like she expected it. Of course she did. Tara had always known how to act like the most important person in the room. Even when she was lying. Especially then. She didn't recognize me. Not even a flicker of familiarity. That stung more than I'd expected. I hadn't changed that much. Same hair, though I kept it tied now. Fewer smiles, less warmth. My clothes were more structured, clean lines, cream tones. But still me. Still the woman she'd worked beside for 6 years. The one she used like a stepladder. And she couldn't even remember my face. When they led her to the waiting area, just outside my office, I stood behind the tinted glass wall and studied her posture. She crossed her legs slowly, the way she used to in client meetings, letting her skirt fall just short of what was appropriate. Her fingers danced around the edge of the chair, tapping to a rhythm only she could hear. A nervous habit. She only did that when she wanted something badly. It was almost comforting, seeing the same ticks, the same illusions of confidence. But I wasn't the same woman who used to sit beside her, nervously reviewing her slides, second-guessing herself. I didn't need her approval now. Or anyone's. I had built everything she saw around her. The high-rise office, the minimalist glass interiors, the art prints on the walls, even the scent, sandalwood and bergamot, chosen for calm authority. This place didn't scream success. It whispered it. And she was here because she needed a job. I opened her file on my desk. She'd left out our old agency. Smart. Clean slate. But I'd seen the whispers online, the gaps in her timeline, the vague consultancy roles. Her downfall hadn't been loud. But it had happened. And now, her resume was in my hands. My assistant knocked softly. "She's ready for you." I nodded, took a breath, and stood up. The walk from my desk to the door was maybe 6 steps. But with each one, the past played like film reel behind my eyes. Jack's voice, low and smug. "Tara just understands me better." The promotion email with her name in bold, mine nowhere. The HR woman avoiding eye contact as she slid me the termination papers. And Tara's laugh, echoing down the hallway as I packed up my things. I remembered everything. Every sound, every silence. When I opened the door, Tara turned toward me with that bright, eager smile. It faltered. Just slightly. Enough for me to see the confusion behind her eyes. She didn't recognize me. Not fully. But something about my face unsettled her. "Hi," she said, standing up and smoothing her skirt. "Thank you for seeing me." I didn't smile. Instead, I gestured toward the seat in front of me and said the words I'd been waiting 2 years to say. "Let's begin." She sat down slowly, like someone trying to recall a face they should have remembered. I could see the effort behind her expression, eyes narrowing for a split second, lips parting just enough as if about to say my name, but then choosing not to. She didn't want to be wrong. Tara never did. I let the silence stretch between us, carefully measured. Long enough to make her shift slightly in her seat, to make her wonder why she felt off. The air conditioning hummed. Outside the window, traffic flowed. My assistant poured 2 glasses of water and set them down, but even that small clink of glass felt too loud. She glanced at the folder on my desk. "So, this is for the brand director role, correct?" I nodded once. "I was excited when I saw the opening," she added. "I've followed your firm's work for a while now. Clean, smart, bold storytelling. It reminds me of the energy we had back at, well, some places I've worked." I didn't respond. She smiled, a little too brightly now. "Your reputation's grown fast." So had yours, I thought. But in the opposite direction. 2 years ago, Tara could have walked into any agency and named her title. Now she was sitting here, performing for a woman she couldn't place, hoping to be noticed. Hired. Needing. There was something deliciously cruel about it, and terrifying too. Because part of me still remembered admiring her. How she used to command a room. How she'd twist facts with a smile. How she made betrayal feel like strategy. I should have hated her outright. But emotions don't always work like spreadsheets. Sometimes, they just sit in you, unfinished, raw, without a clean label. She leaned forward slightly. "I know there's a lot of competition out there, but I'm confident in what I can bring. I've handled multi-platform campaigns, led teams under pressure, and frankly, I'm ready to prove myself again." Again. There it was. The crack in her armor. I tilted my head, just a little. "Why now?" "What do you mean? Why apply here? Why this role? This city?" Her shoulders tensed before she smiled again. But it was thinner this time. Sometimes life pushes you to reset. Things shift. People change. Do they? I asked. A pause. "I'd like to think so," she said quietly, her eyes not quite meeting mine. For a moment, we sat there, 2 women in suits, mirrors of the same game, but no longer equal players. She didn't know she was being tested. Every word, every shift in her voice, every fidget, I was reading her like an old script. She was used to bluffing. But I knew all her tells. I opened the folder in front of me and pretended to scan her resume. "I see a few gaps here," I said, tapping the page. "Consulting work," she replied quickly. "Mostly freelance. Project-based." "References?" She hesitated. "Some were short-term. Informal arrangements." Which meant none. Which meant she'd burned bridges, and probably tried to cover the ash. I leaned back in my chair, crossing one leg over the other. You mentioned leading teams, I said. What would your former colleagues say about your leadership style? She straightened. Firm but fair. I push for excellence, but I don't micromanage. And your ethics? That made her blink. I'm sorry. Your ethics, I repeated, gently. How do you define them? There was a pause long enough to notice. Then she smiled, slower this time. I believe in loyalty, honesty, owning your work. I looked at her for a full beat. Let the weight of her words linger in the room between us. And I said nothing. Because what do you say to someone who weaponized all three against you? If she noticed the shift in my expression, she didn't show it. But I saw the crack in her mascaraed confidence. A flicker in her eye. A tremble in the wrist holding the glass. She was beginning to feel it. She just didn't know why yet. She took a sip of water, slowly, like it might buy her time. I watched her fingers tremble slightly against the glass. She didn't notice. But I did. It was the same hand that used to adjust my collar before presentations. The same hand that hovered too long on Jack's shoulder when she thought I wasn't looking. Funny how something as simple as a wrist could hold so much memory. I want this role, she said, breaking the silence. Her voice was firmer now. Practiced. She was resetting the energy in the room. I know I've made mistakes, she added, but I've grown. And I'm not afraid to rebuild from the ground up. I leaned forward, elbows on the desk. What kind of mistakes? She froze. Just for a beat. Then the mask returned. You know how agency life can be, she said, her laugh too light. Politics. Miscommunications. People making assumptions. Assumptions. That word curled inside me like smoke. 2 years ago, she had stood in the same boardroom as me, tears welling in her eyes. Fake, I later realized, as she told HR she didn't know how my file had ended up deleted from the system. Must have been a technical issue. Then she stood silently as I was escorted out. Didn't say a word. Not even goodbye. I don't deal in assumptions, I said quietly. She looked up. Our eyes locked, finally. And for a fraction of a second, something shifted. She tilted her head. Her brows pulled slightly together. There it was again. Recognition. Or the edge of it. But instead of asking, she smiled again. Right. Of course. I stood and walked to the cabinet behind my desk, giving her time to breathe, or squirm, whichever came first. As I flipped through a few files, I heard her shift in her seat. Sorry, she said suddenly. You look familiar. Have we met before? I turned slowly. No, I said, keeping my voice even. I just have one of those faces. She laughed, uncertain. Maybe it's just the industry. Small world. Very small, I thought. Especially when it collapses on top of you. I returned to my seat and placed a small notepad in front of me. Blank. But I wanted her to think I was taking notes. Wanted her to sit up straighter. Wanted her to worry. So let's talk leadership challenges, I said. Tell me about a time you took the fall for someone else's mistake. Her lips parted slightly. I'm sorry. You heard me. She paused. Blinked. Then pulled her words together like fabric over a tear. Well, that's rare, honestly. But there was a time when a junior associate submitted a budget proposal without running it by me. The numbers were off. I took responsibility, corrected the issue, and coached them through the aftermath. I nodded. Slowly. Sounds generous. She smiled. I try to be fair. No mention of the client you poached. Or the friend you stepped over. Still rewriting history. Tara? There was a strange comfort in watching her lie. It reminded me of who I used to be. How many hours I spent second-guessing myself while she smiled sweetly across the conference table, making me feel like I was overthinking everything. Gaslighting wrapped in kindness. But now, The roles had shifted. Now, I was the one deciding how this meeting ended. I closed her file. She tensed. "Is that good?" she asked. I met her gaze. "You'll hear from us soon." She hesitated, as if unsure whether to press. But something in my tone made her stand. Quickly, with practiced politeness, she extended her hand. I shook it. And just before she turned to leave, she looked back at me again. That same puzzled expression. "Sorry. You really do look familiar," she said. "It's going to bother me all day." I smiled. Some faces do that. She walked out, heels quieter this time. And I stayed in the chair a while longer, staring at the door. My pulse steady. My face calm. But inside me, something buzzed. Not revenge. Something colder. Control. The email was short. "We'd like to move forward. Temporary project basis. Initial scope, 3 weeks. Compensation negotiable. HR." I waited a full day before sending it. Not because I needed time, but because I wanted her to wonder. She replied within 10 minutes. "Yes. Available to start Monday. Thank you for the opportunity." No emojis. No signature flourish. Just tight, efficient words. That was how you knew someone was desperate. They stopped decorating their sentences. Monday morning, she arrived 10 minutes early. Pressed blazer. Minimal makeup. A shade more humble than I remembered her. She walked in like she belonged, but not fully. Not anymore. I stayed behind my glass wall, watching as she greeted the receptionist, her voice an octave lower now, her eyes careful. She didn't ask to see me. And I didn't offer. Instead, my assistant handed her a welcome packet and guided her to the East Wing, far from my office, but close enough that I could walk past if I wanted to. I didn't. Not yet. The first week, I gave her routine work. Campaign audits, client decks, mock presentations. She turned them in on time. Always polite. Always sharp. But I saw it. The hesitation. The way she lingered a second longer in meetings, trying to decode my presence from across the room. Sometimes I'd walk by her desk during a review session. She'd glance up quickly, then pretend not to. I never stopped. Never looked twice. It was deliberate. Late one afternoon, I stayed behind after most of the office had emptied out. Outside, the city hummed with end-of-day traffic. Inside, silence. Except for her keyboard. I stood in the hallway, watching her through the half-glass door of the shared workroom. She was editing a slide deck, one of our legacy clients. I had built that account from scratch back in the agency days. I watched her pause, lean back, rub her temple. She looked tired. For a moment, something tightened in my chest. Old empathy. Residual. Then she opened her drawer and pulled out a compact mirror. Tilted it. Checked her face. Her jaw. Her eyes. She was looking for cracks. I knocked once, gently. She startled slightly, then smiled. Not the radiant kind. The cautious, practiced one. "Evening," I said. "Hi," she answered. "Didn't hear you." "I noticed you're still here." She nodded. "I wanted to finish this tonight. I've been trying to get the tone right. The client seems specific." "They are." She hesitated, then closed the laptop slightly. "I hope it's okay," I took the lead. "I wasn't sure how involved you wanted me to be." "I want you involved," I said. Her eyebrows lifted, just subtly. "Good to know." I walked in, picked up one of the mock slides she'd printed and left on the table. Glanced at it. Strong structure. Clean narrative. "You still have good instinct." She exhaled. "Thanks. That means a lot." "I'll have notes tomorrow," I added, placing it back. "But overall, good work." "Appreciate it." Another pause. Longer this time. Then she looked up at me. "That question you asked, during the interview," she said. "About ethics." I said nothing. "I thought about it later," she went on. Why you asked that? Why it caught me off guard. Still, I didn't speak. I made mistakes, she continued, her voice lower. Some of them I'm not proud of. I think I wanted to believe people forgot. That I could start over clean. I watched her closely and said, calmly, some people remember longer than others. That silence between us, it shifted, almost cracked. But she just nodded. Right. Then looked down at her hands. I left without another word. Let her sit with that weight. The kind of weight that doesn't crush you all at once. The kind that seeps in, quiet, patient, certain. The kind of weight you carry when you don't know which of your ghosts has come back. Or if they've been watching you the whole time. By the second week, she stopped wearing perfume. I noticed it on a Wednesday. She used to walk into rooms like a signature, sweet citrus and white musk trailing behind her, a scent so confident it bordered on arrogant. But that day, there was nothing. Just silence. And something, stripped down. Maybe it was the way she'd started tying her hair back. Or the way her heels were half a size shorter now. Or maybe it was the way she paused longer at the coffee machine, staring just a little too long at her own reflection in the steel. She was unraveling. Softly. Elegantly. Like only someone who once believed she was untouchable could. I had asked her to present the updated client proposal in the Thursday team meeting. Nothing big. Just a 10-minute overview. But the moment I assigned it, I saw the flicker in her eyes. Fear, tucked behind her usual nod. That meeting used to be her playground. Now, it was a spotlight. Thursday arrived. The team gathered. Coffee cups in hand. Laptops open. Voices low. I sat at the head of the long table, expression unreadable. She stood at the far end, slides ready, hands clasped in front of her like she used to teach me, years ago. Confidence is half posture, Hales, she'd once whispered, gently pushing my shoulders back before a pitch. Now, hers were slumped. She cleared her throat. Good morning. I'll walk you through the adjusted strategy for Elkett and Amp Company. There are 3 key shifts to highlight. Her voice was steady, polished, even. But her pacing was off. Too fast. Then too slow. Like she couldn't find her own rhythm. And when she clicked to the 3rd slide, the screen stuttered. She froze. For a moment, just a breath, she looked directly at me. And I saw it. That old panic. That same helpless flicker I remembered from the day the truth about her and Jack came out. Except now, there was no one to save her. No one to whisper that she'd be fine. No one to take the fall. I waited. Let the pause stretch. Then, calmly, take your time. Her hands moved again. She smiled, too wide. Restarted. The rest of the presentation limped its way to the end. When it was done, the team clapped politely, short, restrained. I nodded once and closed my laptop. Thank you, Tara. We'll circle back on the messaging next week. She nodded too. Of course. But I could see it. She didn't believe she'd still be here by next week. That afternoon, she came to my office. Knocked. Entered slowly. I just wanted to apologize for earlier, she said. I should have been more prepared. I didn't look up from my screen. It's noted. A pause. I care about this role, she added, her voice softer. Even if it's temporary. I want to do better. I leaned back in my chair, finally meeting her eyes. You've had a lot of experience, I said carefully. But you also have a history. She blinked. I know, she said, almost a whisper. Do you? I asked. Something in her face faltered. Her eyes dropped. I've made decisions I regret, she said slowly. Especially with people I should have valued more. And there it was. The closest thing to an admission I was ever going to get. Not specific. Not spoken. But real. I stood and walked around to the front of the desk. Close, but not confrontational. She looked up at me, visibly unsure. I studied her for a moment. Then quietly, "Tell me something, Tara. Do you remember the pitch you gave for the L'Eau account? 3 years ago. The one that got you promoted?" She froze. "I do," she said, cautiously. "It was one of our biggest wins." "Our? I mean, the agency's." I tilted my head. "Did you create it?" A beat. Her throat moved in a hard swallow. "I led it." "But did you create it?" Silence. I stepped closer. "That pitch was mine." Her breath caught. "I built it. Every word. Every slide. I left it on our shared drive while I stepped out for lunch. You changed the title page. Removed my name. Submitted it before I returned." Now, there was no mask left. Just hair. Eyes wide. Shoulders tight. Still. I didn't know what to. "You knew exactly what you were doing." She lowered her gaze. "I was scared," she said. "You were better than me and I couldn't stand it." Her voice cracked. I let the silence fall between us. Heavy. Until I finally said, "Now you work for me." She looked up, slowly. "Is this punishment?" "No," I said. "This is reality." She didn't reply. And for once, she didn't smile. She didn't come in the next day. No message. No email. Just an empty desk and her access badge left on top of the keyboard, neatly aligned, as if she had rehearsed her exit in silence. My assistant found it before I did. Held it up like something delicate. "Tara didn't show," she said quietly. I just nodded. There was no need to ask why. I walked into the East Wing later that afternoon, stood by the now empty workstation. Her chair still slightly turned from the last time she sat in it. A half-drunk bottle of water. A sticky note on the monitor that read, "Client call at 3, don't forget." She never got to make that call. And I didn't erase the note. I left it there for 3 more days. Until someone else quietly took her place. No goodbyes. No confrontation. No closure. Just gone. The way she once left me. People think revenge is loud. But it's not. Revenge is watching someone slowly realize you're not the same person they destroyed. That they no longer have the power to reach you, to shake you, to be remembered kindly. Revenge is silence. And control. A week later, I passed her in a grocery store parking lot. She was wearing a navy coat, hair pulled back, headphones in. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and just kept walking. Either way, I didn't stop her. I didn't wave. Didn't smile. Didn't give her the chance to explain something I no longer needed to understand. She disappeared into the crowd, and for the first time since that day at the agency, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel anything at all. People say you should forgive to move on. I didn't. I just stopped needing an apology. And that was enough.